Hello, all, and welcome to HOJ-Cast number 31. And coming to you during this Sunday afternoon, just watched one of the two conference championship games. Now trying to squeeze this in during the break between the games, and maybe this will bleed in. I'm sure we'll bleed into the first half of the NFC Championship game, but then hopefully this content will be out and ready for people to listen to after taking in a Sunday of some conference championship football. So this HOJ-Cast is going to be a little bit different than others in terms of some of the topics that it covers. One thing that we're going to get into that we don't get into a ton is valuing something. Coming up with several different approaches for valuation of some cards that are tough to value, and that might be educational or helpful for people to show an approach, not the approach. That's what I want to make very clear from the outset. There is no definitive way to come up with a price or a value for a card, but to show an approach that might be interesting to people who, and then there'll probably be plenty of people who already used this technique or a technique like it. But anyway, so I'm already foreshadowing. So let me just lay out what the structure of the show is going to be. It's going to be 3 segments. The first segment is going to do something fun. It's going to talk about some of the Michael Jordan one-of-ones from the 90s that have never surfaced, and then also go through the ones that have, and show which ones have a public owner and who that public owner is, and look at any commentary that they've provided. Look at which ones have surfaced publicly but don't have an owner publicly claiming them. We call those privately owned. And then the unsurfaced ones. So we're going to account for all 72 of Michael Jordan's one-of-ones from the 90s. His very first one-of-ones. We're going to account for all of them. And then the second segment is going to be what I alluded to just a moment ago, which is triangulating a value. And that's going to apply to the 2 of the 72 Michael Jordan one-of-ones that are coming to auction with Heritage Auctions next month. So we'll use a valuation approach. We'll see how close was Heritage's guide value, which I have shown on the screen right now. How accurate was that guide value for each of those 2? And then finally, I'm going to do something philosophical. I'm calling it the Rorschach test. I'm going to use the Rorschach test as a sort of metaphor for collecting experience. And then we'll get out of here. So we'll see how long this takes. This is going to be dense again, and that's the way we like it. Lots of research, and then the valuation talk, I think, will be that's the new part. That's something that I don't really like to get into a ton here. I've made my points of view sort of known elsewhere, but also at various sections, in various stints on the HOJ-Cast as well. That I don't index too heavily on price, or I don't put price realized or value estimate or historical sales records. I don't put them on the pedestal that a lot of people do. I don't treat them as sacrosanct. I don't think that they are the definitive end all be all. And I really think that price needs to be deconstructed intellectually. That price is so unreflectively consumed as just this impenetrable data point. And aside from the obvious flaws with that, which is that price can be manipulated, results can be shilled, transactions can be staged, and so on and so forth. Aside from those obvious deceptions, there's still much to deconstruct in a totally genuine arm's length fair market transaction too. And anyway, and I don't want to turn the first 20 minutes of this episode into that, because that's not really the point or the goal of this episode. Maybe a later episode can focus on that. But I also gave that line of thinking some deep treatment in the most recent Card Ladder Confidential with Brett and Josh over there on Stacking Slabs. So I go into that in depth on that episode. So if that's a topic of interest, maybe check that out, and maybe we'll deal more with that in a later HOJ-Cast. But okay, so now let me get to this. So why am I making this episode? And it's in pretty short succession relative to the previous episode. So I guess this will probably be the second January episode. and that's increasing the cadence of shows. Usually I was hoping to just get one out per month here during busy season when all the sports are on. And needless to say, the sports card industry has been incredibly busy. All the work that we do, myself and my other card letter co-founders and teammates, it's just been the busiest time ever. And so it's a very busy time. It's not easy to squeeze in a podcast, but I really was inspired to do it, and I really made time to do this one because these two Jordan Ultra masterpieces from the collection of 72 90s Michael Jordan 1-of-1s coming to auction with Heritage really inspired me on some level to continue databasing and researching and taking new approaches. And the fact that both of these are going to change ownership soon was really a cause for me to want to create a registry or a database of all of the owners of the Michael Jordan 1-of-1s from the 90s, and to find out where they all exist, and find out which ones haven't surfaced, and so on and so forth. And I'd sort of done that colloquially. I sort of had like my own private running tab or tally is a better word of the location of various Michael Jordan 1-of-1s, not just the 90s ones either. Jordan has a little shy of 600 solo 1-of-1s over his entire NBA licensed tenure, and in some point in the coming months, or maybe more realistically the coming years, we'll go deeper into that research and start looking at 1-of-1s beyond the first 72. But the first 72 are such a ripe area for picking right now that it's hard to really focus on anything else. But eventually we will exhaust discussing the first 72, and as that content matures, then there will be opportunity to move on. I think probably the next ones I would look at are the third year Michael Jordan 1-of-1s, 1999-2000. I believe that year offered 234 or 235 1-of-1s of Michael Jordan, making it by far the most prolific year. It accounts for nearly half of all of his NBA licensed 1-of-1s. And that NBA license era ends in 2009-10. And then, I don't know, maybe 5 years down the line, not to look incredibly too far into the future, but or maybe 3-4 years down the line, we'll start looking at the unlicensed Michael Jordan 1-of-1s, which begin in 2010-11 and continue to this day. And there's so much to analyze there too, in terms of how did Michael Jordan's exclusion from the entire Panini era, how did that impact his collectability? I think negatively. I think he was really pushed out of the picture almost entirely among two new generations of collectors. The generation of collectors that sort of came of age with the late 2000s or early 2010s, and then the to colloquially put it, the pandemic generation of collectors, that the 2017-18 to today. And I know the pandemic didn't start in 2017-18, but sort of I'm sort of loosely defining that era, sort of the Luka, Patrick Mahomes to present era, and then sort of the Steph Curry era, the Curry era being sort of like the 2009 through, I guess, 2016 or so, like that's sort of its own chunk. And then Mahomes and that whole thing starts 2017 onward into today. And I think we have a new era starting today with the transfer of the licenses. Like 2026 marks, I think, the beginning of the Topps ubiquity era, where Topps is everything, to the three major sports: baseball, basketball, and football, here domestically in the U.S. But so Michael Jordan has this whole unlicensed catalog, and it's very sparse. He has this exclusive deal with Upper Deck. He doesn't sign very many things. They just don't really put him in a lot of sets, so on and so forth. But he does still have 1-of-1s from the unlicensed era too. So maybe that's something to really look forward to way down the line. But before we get to that, we need to get through that third year of 1-of-1s, which I alluded to, which is a really rich year of 1-of-1s. There's some really cool Michael Jordan 1-of-1s belonging to that third year. But still, we're still quite a ways away from even being ready to discuss those, as we still devour his first 72 1-of-1s from 97-98 and from 98-99. But the genesis here, like I was saying, is that these coming to auction, these having a transfer of ownership, really inspired me to leap from having my own personal recording, not just of his first 1-of-1s, but I try to anytime I can gather an image, a picture, or information on who owns any of his one of ones from his NBA license era, I gather it. And I've even I've even begun gathering information on who owns his unlicensed ones too. So I try to keep that information fresh. And there are some one of ones from the 2000s and even from the third year, which is 99 2000. There are some one of ones there that I just love that jump out to me for whatever reason. And so I am kind of pursuing those in the background too, even though us here, this group, this audience, we haven't really had a chance to discuss those in depth at all and to review that catalog at all, because we can only discuss so many things at a time. But if you have ever clicked into my overall Michael Jordan one-of-one spreadsheet, which does document all of his solo one-of-ones, it also documents all of his multiplayer one-of-ones, and it also documents all of his printing plates. And printing plate content is coming eventually too. If you've ever looked at that spreadsheet, you can see the full fruits of my research into all those different domains. So, but here we have an opportunity where I could really formalize a registry of who owns or doesn't own, or what is the history of the surfacing of his first one of ones, the first 72. And so that's really exciting, especially because with these two changing hands and potentially new public owners stepping forward to claim them, that would further enhance the database. But I have built this database. And so the database is now live publicly, and it lives at 90smj1of1s.com. 90smj1of1s.com is where you can go to find these, or you can just DM me and I'll give you the link. But so as a reminder, there's lots of content on that page. There's a link to a super high quality index of the Michael Jordan one of ones from the 90s, in case you'd like to download that or even print it off. I've had great success putting it on an acrylic material. It costs a few $100 to do that, but it makes for amazing wall art. So anyway, that high quality image files, those are available at 90smj1of1s.com. Also available is this page, which is the Michael Jordan one of ones from the 90s, which is just the research. As I'm scrolling it here for the YouTube audience, it just breaks down the 72 one of ones into 6 buckets, explains what it is that unites each of them into the bucket that they belong in, and then gives a front side image of each, and then sort of explains why the printing plates aren't included, why the or more so, it explains that printing plates aren't included. It explains that the multiplayer cards aren't included, and explains, and it gives an acknowledgement to the 1999-2000 MJ one of ones, which are half 90s. They have half a foot in the 90s, but the other foot in the 2000s, so they're not quite pure 90s. But anyway, that research exists there. But then the newest page that I've added to the research here is the owners of the first Michael Jordan one of ones. I just added this page to the 90s MJ one of ones website last week as part of doing this database, and sort of being willing to share all of my intel on where these one of ones exist, where they live. And partially because I've already, I think, contacted literally every person to try and acquire theirs, and so some of those efforts came up short. So I've exhausted my resources to some extent, and maybe somebody else can take a stab at some of these if they want to try and procure them. Maybe they'll have better luck than me, or maybe they'll just be better than me at procuring them. But yeah, I'm willing to turn over that research and make it available, and we're going to walk through this whole document. And so here's the thing, right? So this is explaining the ownership status of Michael Jordan's first one of ones. And like I said, there are 72. 7 come from the first year, which is 97-98. And 65 come from the second year, which is 98-99. And there are 3 types of ownership, okay? I've broken this into 3 groups. The public, that's type number 1, public, which in very specifically, this means that there is a live link to the owner who has publicly identified themselves. And so there are 37 of the 72 meet this criteria, just over half. And to me, it was very important to make sure to protect the privacy of anybody who is not publicly claiming ownership, even if I sort of know who might own it, or there's a rumor of who might own it, or an owner has come forth to me privately to share that they own something. If there is not a permanent live link to the person in a public setting identifying themselves as the owner and claiming ownership and proving ownership, then I wasn't going to include them, and I didn't include them. So the goal here is only to identify people who have clearly, unambiguously, publicly identified themselves as owners, and those people account for 37 of the 72 one-of-ones. Then the second type is the private ownership, and what that means is that the card has surfaced somewhere. Maybe it showed up in a photo at some point, maybe it's in a sales history, maybe it's in a population report. However, the owner has not publicly self-identified, and so for that reason, they remain private. And if they want to come forth and like permanently host evidence of their ownership somewhere and send it to me, I'd be happy to transfer that card status into public ownership from private ownership. But until such a live link exists, they certainly deserve the privilege of remaining private. And then the third category are the unsurfaced one-of-ones, meaning simply that there is no documentation that this card is in circulation. And so, so to backtrack for a second, of the cards of the MJ one-of-ones that fall into the private category, 21 of the 72 are in this private category. They have quote unquote private owners. And then in the unsurfaced category, the totally undocumented cards, 14 of the 72 are unsurfaced. And so then I've created this database that goes through the different groups. It identifies the 37 public and the 21 private and the 14 unsurfaced. And like I said, you can go through this for yourself if you'd like to, and just consume this content until your heart is content. It's publicly available at 90smj1of1s.com. But let me back up, or let me, in fact, or to put it differently, let me get to the juiciest part of this, which is the 14 unsurfaced one-of-ones, because we can dream that perhaps they're still living in boxes somewhere, or that or in a pack, just waiting to be discovered. There's a friend of mine on Instagram who recently opened a pack, just a loose pack, not even a pack from a box, and he pulled out from it an MJ Now Showing insert, which I believe belongs to 1999-2000 Upper Deck, numbered to 25. In a loose pack, an MJ insert numbered to 25, which is just incredible. So, and that's a popular MJ insert, and I can't believe it, right? But that's the dream, right? Is that maybe one or more of these 14 are still living in a box or a pack. I don't even think that's unreasonable. I think there's a decent chance at least some are. There's also a chance that some are just sitting in a binder somewhere, or in a storage locker, or maybe that somebody acquired it and didn't know what they had, because one-of-ones were so obscure in the 90s, and because they tended to be so subtle. Maybe they even got discarded and we'll never see them. But those are all possibilities of what has happened with the unsurfaced. But let's go through the unsurfaced, the 14 unsurfaced, which generated maybe one of my most, I think undeniably my most viral tweet that I've ever put out, bearing in mind that the average tweet of mine gets anywhere from 0 to maybe 2 likes, and perhaps a comment or two of a person that I've agitated, and that's on a good day. But this tweet actually resonated quite a bit. So the tweet that I made says there are 14 Michael Jordan one-of-ones from the 90s that have yet to surface. Okay, so drawing on this research that I did, and then I said they can be found in the following products. So I list the products that these 14 might belong to, might still be in packs even, and I gave a nice image of the 14 together, and then I put pictures of 3 of the boxes. So the 14 actually hail from 5 different products, and we're going to go through each of them one by one. But the big picture point of the tweet here is that it names each of the 5 different products that they came from. And so this tweet got over 80,000 views and over 600 likes and almost 500 bookmarks at the time of me recording this. So, all right. Anyway, let's go through them now. So this was the cool little singular image that I made. So now I'm looking at my Instagram stories highlight, where I posted these to Twitter and then I posted them to my Instagram stories also. And the Instagram stories was a little bit more conducive, honestly, to sharing and identifying each of these cards, drawing on the incredible recreations of each of these card designs that was done by Frizzo Collects, because you might be wondering, how do I have images of the 14 if they've never surfaced? And the reason for that is because Frizzo Collects created these mock-ups, these incredibly accurate mock-ups of each, and he just did an amazing job. And I would encourage, I know that Kobe Bryant Collector has reached out to work with him to create an index. And if anybody's looking for just the highest quality graphic design, I don't know that it gets any better. And he is a professional in that space, so please be respectful of that fact, that this is his work and that these are job opportunities for him. But every penny is worth it, and I'm going to be working with him on several more projects in the not so distant future too. I just need to complete my research and deliver it to him first. Okay, so I have the image of the 14, and then I'm going to walk through the image one by one, and then another slide that I made just sort of showed pictures of all 5 boxes actually that they come from, and we'll go through each of those boxes in turn. So I'm going to walk through each of the 14. So the first is the row 3. 1 of 1 from 1997-98 Flair Showcase. That product just has one configuration. There's not a Series 1 and a Series 2. So 1997-98 Flair Showcase, that's one of the boxes that perhaps the row 3 is living in, one of those boxes. Next up, we have the 98 Greats from 1997-98 Ultra Series 2. So make sure that you don't want to, if you're looking for this card, it's not going to be in the Series 1 box. You're going to want the Series 2 box. But there it is, Frizzo's beautiful mock-up of that card. I'm really attracted to that card. I think that's a fantastic card. Then we have the Extreme from 1998-99 SPX Finite. So the box that this would live in is Series 1 of 1998-99 SPX Finite. The parallel is called the Extreme 1 of 1. Takes a purple color tone and has a pretty cool action shot of MJ, and it has the dot matrix 01/01. And an interesting tidbit about this one, and this might be fodder for a future episode. In fact, I'm sure it will be. This card predates his January 1999 retirement. So even though it's not associated with a season during which Michael Jordan suited up in the NBA, it still was released prior to his January 1999 retirement, as indicated by the fact that the copyright date on the back is 1998. But I've also got some Beckett magazines that I purchased that are going to help me. I pretty much bought like every Beckett basketball from 1997, 1998, and 1999 over the last few days on eBay. And I'm going to use those to hopefully get to pin down precise release dates for each of these. But there's a good case to be made that this is pre-January 1999 official Michael Jordan retirement. Next card is the 1998-99 Game Dated Gold 1 of 1 from 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 1. This card also predates his January 1999 retirement, or at least all evidence points towards it. But let me get those Becketts and 100% confirm it. Really neat card. The game dated this. This is his first appearing card in the 1998-99 Upper Deck base set, and that's to me that's really cool. That this is his first appearing 1 of 1 from an Upper Deck base set. So this one has yet to be seen as well. Very, very cool card. Technically, I think I categorize this as sort of being a thematic card because it does have that little game dated insignia, and there are some game dated cards, there are some not, but nonetheless it is the first appearing to appear in the base set, and it's got it's got a cool photo. It's magnificent. And then the next one we have is this checklist number 311. So the game dated gold can be found in boxes of 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 1. This checklist here comes from Series 2, 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 2. And we're about to get into a slew of cards that all can be found in 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 2. And I noticed when I was doing a little bit of research prior to this episode, I didn't screenshot and bring it in to my slideshow here, but as I was looking, 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 2 boxes sell for considerably more than Series 1. And I do wonder on some level of the fact that there's a shot at so many more Michael Jordan 1-of-1s is the primary factor in why those boxes sell for more. But maybe there's something else too. Maybe it has something to do with the rookies being included in Series 2 or something. I mean, there could be a million reasons. I really don't know. I'm just speculating. But anyway, this is a checklist from Series 2. This is the only one. Michael Jordan has 4 1-of-1 checklists from the 90s. This is the only one that is unsurfaced. And you just love the checklist art. The front side of these cards is just magnificent. I don't know that you could make a much more beautiful Michael Jordan card than what the front side of this card is. It's a beautiful gold foil with that 90s sheen to it running along the left border and the bottom border, and then Jordan in the signature Bulls red, in the red jersey with the close-up in the background of the action and the photo in the front, the gold foil, the beautiful giant Upper Deck logo. It's just a magnificently designed, elegantly simple card. And now I think everything else I'm going to go through is all 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 2. So all these cards that are unsurfaced, I think, let me go back to my tweet here. Yeah, so 10 cards, 10 of the 14 unsurfaced Michael Jordan 1-of-1s live in Upper Deck Series 2. So perhaps, well, I think indisputably, 1998-99 Upper Deck Series 2 is going to provide the best shot at stumbling into one of these Michael Jordan 1-of-1s. And I should point out here, I think it's obvious, but still can't be too careful. The odds of pulling one of these must be similar to being struck by lightning. Okay, so that's just something to lay on the table here, is that the odds of pulling one. So, for example, I'm not going out and buying these boxes and trying to pull one out, although I do think about it. I do sort of dream of opening a box of 98-99 Upper Deck Series 2, and out comes, this card, for example. So this one here is M from the Alphabet Gold 1-of-1s. There are 23 Alphabet Gold 1-of-1s, 230 A, B, C, D, E, etc. This is M. And so I was just sort of alluding to how the game dated gold is the first 1-of-1 of Michael Jordan to appear in an Upper Deck base set. These, the 230s, are the first, traditional base set cards. There is no thematic content. There is no game dated element to it. These are just pure base cards documented in the 97-98 season. And M is the only one. 22 of the 23 have surfaced. This is the only one of the 23 that has not. Then we have a bunch of Quantum Golds. So it's so interesting. Quantum Golds also belonging to Series 2 of 1998-99 Upper Deck. And noting that Series 2 is post-January 1999 retirement announcement of Michael Jordan. These Quantum Golds, so it's so interesting that 22 of the 23 Alphabet Golds have been accounted for. But we're going to see here. Let's see how many Quantum Golds haven't been accounted for. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess 8. 8 of the Quantum Golds have not been accounted for. So basically, of the 10 from Series 2 of 98-99 Upper Deck, 1 is a checklist gold 1-of-1. 1 is an Alphabet Gold 1-of-1, and then 8 Quantum Gold 1-of-1. So how is that? Why is it that so many of the Quantum Gold 1-of-1s haven't shown up? So in other words, 75% of the 4 checklists have shown up. I guess, but I guess 2 of those checklists come from Series 1. So I guess 50% of the checklists are accounted for. 22 23rds or 22 out of 23, whatever percentage that might come out to be, of the I guess that's certainly over 90%, right? Of the Alphabet Golds have come out. Sorry, once I get an idea. So 22 out of 23 is 96%, right? So okay, so 96% of the Alphabet Golds have been accounted for. But when we look at but then only 22 of the 30 Quantum Golds have surfaced, which means only 73% of the Quantum Golds. So there's still 27% of the Quantum Golds floating around out there. So happy hunting if you're looking for them. So anyway, the Quantum Golds that are missing, and I just love looking at the Quantum Golds. At first I didn't really like several parts of them, but they have just grown on me so much as I've researched more and I've gotten used to them. And now I just love the way they look. And I think part of the reason why I love the way they look too is just that when I posted I have 2 of the Quantum Golds. When I posted one of my 2 to Instagram, it was one of my most liked posts I ever made. I think sort of seeing other people accept and enjoy that card made it easier for me to do so. Which there's a lot to unpack there, just in terms of the psychology of how collecting works in general. But I'd be in denial if I didn't admit that I think it had some sort of effect on me too. So anyway, the ones that are missing: Quantum Gold 1, Quantum Gold 6. And I'll just let the Instagram reel play at its natural speed. Quantum Gold 12. What a fantastic image on that one of MJ in the red jersey. Quantum Gold 13 of MJ in the black pinstripes bringing the ball up. That's like a prism photo. Let me pause on that one for a second. So prism photos often get criticized a lot because they're not these high flying action shots. They're just the player dribbling the ball up the floor a lot of the time. But I love that. I love the subtlety of that, and I love how it sort of matches what the prism base set is trying to do. The prism base set is trying to present rookies. It's trying to sort of tell the bigger picture. You know, the base set is big. No one player is bigger than the set. And the purpose of the sets is just sort of to capture the player in just a natural moment, rather than to just show them at their absolute athletic peak. And so anyway, the Quantum Gold 13 reminds me a lot of a shot that would have been used in a prism base set, just MJ bringing the ball up the floor. Anyway, let's let this slideshow keep rolling here. Quantum Gold 15 is another one that's missing. Quantum Gold 21, MJ passing. Some people think he didn't do a lot of that. Quantum Gold 24, MJ taking the ball strong to the rim. Quantum Gold 25, also MJ in that white jersey, going up against some Pacers defenders. And then that's it. That is the total rundown of the 8 Quantum Golds unsurfaced. So there, we've just walked through the 14 unsurfaced, and we've discussed the product, the actual box in which each of them can be found. And I think the boxes range, looks like, let me just recap here what the boxes are. So the boxes are the 97-98 Flare Showcase. I think those are like really expensive, maybe $5, $6, $7 something like that. 97-98 Ultra Series 2. I couldn't really quickly find any 97-98 Ultra Series 2 or 98-99 SPX Finite Series 1 boxes. But then we get to the 98-99 Upper Deck, and I think the Series 2 has recently been selling for around $1,200 to $1,500, although there were a few sales lower than that too, but I guess maybe the condition of the box is a factor. And then Series 1, which I saw sold for more like $750 to $1,000 recently. So those are a little bit more affordable, but still, I mean, it would be wise to understand, or to have the expectation that $1,000 is going to be spent, and there's probably going to be $20 worth of cards. I don't know, that might be extreme, but there's almost zero chance of getting anywhere close to recouping the $1,000 without essentially hitting the lottery and getting one of these great cards. Now, there are many great cards in here besides the Michael Jordan 1-of-1s. Hitting a 1-of-1 of any player from any of the so I guess the base set has 1-of-1s, the Quantum Gold has 1-of-1s. I think that's it as far as the 1-of-1s go. Now the base set has a few subsets that are, for all intents and purposes, insert sets. So within the base set, you have the To The Net set, which just has a few players in it. You have the Highway 99, which has just a few players in it, and you have the Heart and Soul. So you know there's those subsets that live within the base set. But yeah, I would think a 1-of-1 of just about any player would go a long way towards recouping, even a common player. But anyway, enough of that speculating. Man, wouldn't it be fun to rip one of those boxes? Okay, so we've gone over the 14 unsurfaced. Now I'd like to go over the other, I guess, 58 that have surfaced, the 37 public and the 21 private. So now I've pulled up this document from the 90s MJ 1-of-1s website. And so now the order that I go in here is just I just sort of followed the logic of the buckets, where basically like I took all the images from the research in the order of the 6 buckets of the 72. And then I just kept the ones that have a public owner, and then the other ones I moved them down into other groups. So that it's like there's that. If you were wondering like why are they in the order that they're in, they're roughly following the order of the buckets, and then within each bucket they're ordered by the name of the product. So like here, in the Lucky 7 bucket, which is the 7 first year 1-of-1s of MJ. They're just ordered. They go Flare Showcase because alphabetical F, and then they go Ultra, and then they go Upper Deck. So those are just the only 3 products to have 1-of-1s of MJ during that first year. And so that's roughly the order here. The one change I made was I moved the checklists up above the alphabet golds and the quantum golds, whereas before the checklists had been below, and that is how they are in the original research document. But I just felt like that since there's only 4 checklists versus 23 alphabet golds and 30 quantum golds, I sort of wanted to elevate the checklist and just like make sure that checklist doesn't get overlooked way down at the bottom. But who cares? I mean, anyway, so let's go through this. So first up, we have the row 0 from the Flare Showcase. And so in all the instances, except for one, among all the public and the private owners, I was able to find the cert number from the grading company of that card. So I guess there's 58 that are public or privately owned. I'm pretty sure I have a cert number for 57 of them. So anytime there was a cert number, I documented that. And obviously when there's a PSA cert, it's super helpful because the PSA cert typically comes with a nice scan too. So that's a cool way to sort of get a different look at the card, going above and beyond the mock-ups that Frizzo created. And then also, publicly, like I said, if any card is publicly owned, I provide a live link that proves that person owns it. And so here we can look at the row 0 link out, which is going to go to Nat Turner's or Nat S Turner _ cards. Then we can sort of see what he had to say. And so he simply wrote, one of the biggest cards in my collection, the row 0 MJ Masterpiece 1 of 1 from 1997-98 Flair, one of my favorite sets back then and still today. There are 4 different rows in the set, 0, 1, 2, and 3, with a masterpiece in each. And so I find it super interesting to see how much or how little a collector will divulge about any card that they pick up. And sort of every collector has a different style. Right, Nat has a distinct style. Nat is usually shorter, much more efficient, much more compact. I think Nat is definitely of the school of less is more, and the amount that he wrote here for the row 0 is actually quite a bit more, I think, than he usually writes, which might be sort of revealing the excitement that he also just plainly conveyed in his message. But other people, the other owners we're going to get to here, can be much more vociferous. So Nat also has the row 1. Once again, we can hit that link to go out to his page. And for that one, he said, and here's the row 1 masterpiece from MJ from 1997 Flair Showcase, one of the best cards in my collection. It was in a BGS Authentic slab for a long time and finally got around to crossing it. I have 3 of the 4 masterpieces from the set, and they're all in PSA Authentic holders now. And as he alluded to, Nat also has the row 2. And so we can click here, go to the row 2, and let's see what he had to say about that. He simply says, one of my favorite cards in my collection, Masterpiece Jordan from 1997 Flair Showcase. So there's 3 of the masterpieces. Then we already referred to the fact that the row 3 is unsurfaced. That completes the 4. Here is then the Upper Deck Power Deck 1 of 1 from the first MJ 1 of 1s, the white jersey variation, if you will. There also is a black jersey unnumbered version and a red jersey unnumbered version, but the white jersey 1 of 1 is the only of the version of the Power Decks that shows MJ in the white jersey. So, this is I recently had a comment in one of my videos where somebody sort of pointed out that there is a distinction between a 1 of 1 that has other versions where the background color changes or the color of the nameplate changes, but it's still the same photo, same design, versus 1 of 1s where there really is no other true version of it. The photo changes or something very significant about the design and the structure of the card changes. And so I kind of like that as an angle on the Power Deck. That I think there are some people who sort of say that the Power Deck and cards like it that are like true masterpieces in the sense that there genuinely is no other version that uses the same photo and the same design, that they suffer for that because there are no lesser versions or there are no more common versions that other people can own that sort of create desire and intrigue around it. That these are maximally obscure because they are genuine masterpieces in that sense. But he had this commentator had a different spin on it and was sort of pointing out that there's actually something quite special about 1 of 1s that genuinely admit of no other versions. And so the Power Deck isn't totally in that camp, right? Because there is a black jersey and there is a red jersey, but it sort of is in that camp because the black jersey looks quite different and the red jersey looks quite different. It's a totally different image of Jordan. It's not the same action shot, just a Photoshop different color jersey. They're quite different, totally different action shots. So this Michael Jordan in this pose from this game This is the only card that will ever exist with that photo in this design. No other versions, no other parallels. So pretty neat. Little side point there. And so obviously I have a giant write-up on it, and I think a 20 slide carousel, if anybody's interested. But we've already covered that at length on a previous episode. So I've photo matched it to Getty and I provided a video of the game that it came from. I show the 3 different power decks of Jordan: the black jersey, the red jersey, and the white jersey. There's the video from the specific game. There's a bit of the lore, some vibing here on the logos and so on. So anyway, we won't go over, and I won't force you all to listen to my caption for another time. So if you're interested, you can go back and dive into the episode that goes into that. All right, the next one we have up, which does have a public owner, but this one actually has a public and a private owner. And it is, in fact, that purple masterpiece. So I'm far from an expert on this topic, but I do know that it is generally accepted that the 1998-99 Ultra Purple Masterpiece 1-of-1s from the basketball product have 2 different 1-of-1s for at least some players, maybe all, although it's not clear how many are in circulation. Some still might be in packs, and it's not entirely clear to me how the second set of 1-of-1s leaked out, but grading companies have authenticated multiple 1-of-1s of multiple players. I don't think I've seen any player have more than 2, but I think there are quite a few players that have 2, and Michael Jordan is among those players who have 2. Now, the idea is that one of them was pack issued, and that the other one sort of was backdoored somehow, that it wasn't really intended for release. Maybe it was a replacement copy or some sort of gift given to, well, I don't know. I don't even want to begin speculating on that. But grading companies have authenticated both. Okay, so or multiple versions, 2 different versions for each. So you have Nats, which and I have the PSA cert for both. So the PSA cert for Nats is several generations earlier, right? So I think it's from such an early era that it was even pre-PSA imaging cards, right? So there's not even an image of it in PSA's database, and the cert begins with a 4. Right, so I don't know exactly when that was graded, but it was years ago, many years ago. And then there's the newly surfaced one, which has a much more recent PSA cert. This PSA cert starts with 11. So this is also provided the PSA cert there. This one is imaged, so you can go to PSA's website and see the image of it, and it graded at PSA 5. And so the point here is that there's 2, right? But in terms of identifying which one has the pack pulled provenance, I would encourage anybody to follow up with Nat, who loves to chat with collectors, and just if you're curious, just maybe sort of ask him, what's the provenance of his, because I do believe that he maintains that the provenance of his is quite good. But anyway, I won't go further into that if that's his story to tell, not mine. But I'm pretty sure he's high on the provenance of it. And so if we go to his Instagram page, or his post about it, which was almost 300 weeks ago, so from May of 2020. I'm pretty sure this was pre the discovery of the other purple 1-of-1 MJ coming out to the public. So I don't think he felt any need to sort of address provenance or anything here. But his caption says, "Here's one of my favorite Jordan cards, the 98-99 Ultra Masterpiece 1-of-1. These were very distinctive from the base card with the purple background. Love the italicized 'only' on the back for the serial numbered statement, where it says the only 1-of-1 Masterpiece edition, and the word 'only' is italicized." And I agree, that is a cool design feature there. So moving on here, then we have the Heart and Soul card from 98-99 Upper Deck, which its owner is me, and I haven't publicly posted this or done any podcast content on it yet. So for this card and for the other ones like it that you'll see that belong to me, I simply link to my card letter showcase because it does live there. That is a public collection, and that's all the public access that I have for it. But eventually I will write a story and dedicate probably part of a podcast episode to telling the story of this Heart and Soul Michael Jordan 1-of-1. And then there is the PSA cert too. I can't remember if this card had been, I don't think it was imaged. Yeah, so this also comes from that era of the 4s, and it is not imaged. So, but anyway, more coming on that. Also more coming here. Another one here with the public owners, the Highway 99. Once again, I haven't told the story of this one at all yet. I believe this one is imaged. Yes, this one is imaged on PSA's database, which is really cool. So it also begins with a 4. So I don't know. That was right around the time they started imaging these, I suppose. But there it is on PSA's website, and also there's a link to my card ladder collection. And again, the To The Net Me owner, and this is the first one that has a BGS cert. So the way the BGS cert works, they don't image any, but they do allow linking out so that this can be researched. And so where there's a BGS cert, I provide a link so that's so like, for example, this is such that BGS gives a cool tidbit of data that PSA does not give, which BGS gives you date graded. And so you can see there on my To The Net, it was graded with back at a BGS 9 on September 20th, 2005, over 21, or almost rather 21 years ago. Next one here is the MJ's first ever 1-of-1 checklist number 174. That is mine. Have not done any public content on it. So I've only like publicly shared maybe 4 90s MJ 1-of-1s or so. So there's going to be a lot of stuff here that I'm just sort of going to gloss over because I'm going to do plenty of content on it later. So I have there from Series 1, MJ's first ever 1-of-1 checklist, and I have his first appearing checklist in Series 2. So from 98.99 Upper Deck also. So he has 4 total checklists from the 90s. They all belong to 98.99 Upper Deck, 2 to Series 1, 2 to Series 2. And I have the first from Series 1, and I have the first from Series 2, which is checklist 310. Again, that's a BGS cert, and linking out to my card ladder profile. And then here, now we get to the Alphabet Golds, of which I have 10. So let me not even dwell too long on any of them, except to point out here is A, which I have publicly discussed. A is such an emotional, informative card for my collection because it was my first ever Michael Jordan 1-of-1. And it also has quite a bit of historical significance in my mind because it's his first genuinely unthemed traditional 1-of-1 from an Upper Deck base set. So there it is with this PSA cert linked out. And then this one actually does link to an Instagram post that I made where you can watch me drone on about it until your heart's content. Here is B, also owned by me, C owned by me, and D owned by me. And I have not made any content about those 3 yet. So those will just link to my the card letter pages. And now we get to F, which is owned by Instagram account Mount Playa _mailman. And so let's go see what he had to say about it. So again, the card we're looking at here is F from the Alphabet Gold. And here he wrote this in April of 2018. He says, new arrival, Michael Jordan 98.99 Upper Deck Gold 1-of-1. I just find it so interesting, the different styles. Like I write paragraphs. I constantly have to, I will write it and then I have to cut it off because I exceed Instagram's character limit. And then here is the total opposite approach of just very subtly just saying, hey, look, here's a gold 1-of-1 of Michael Jordan. You know, and it's 2 very different approaches that are both effective. I think it makes quite a statement when all you need to say is, hey, look, it's a gold 1-of-1 of Michael Jordan. What do you know? But then I just can't resist. I love the storytelling. I love the contextualizing. I love the history. And I do really feel like there's so much history to be told about these cards that hasn't been told yet. Okay, so then we get to H, also owned by me. Then we get to N. So there's a gap there. You see that between H and N, there's a bunch of these that are either privately owned or unsurfaced. But actually, we've already discussed that M is the only one that's unsurfaced. So the others are privately owned. When we get to N, and this is the second of 2 that are owned by Mount Playa Mailman. Let's see what he said in his post about this one. He said 98.99 Upper Deck Gold 1-of-1 Michael Jordan 230 N and F masterpiece. So he's actually here showing off the other one that we just discussed, which is F, and then he's also showing off his ownership of N. And then he adds one more line: 2 at home, 21 to go. So this was written in November of 2018. So he got both of his MJ Gold 1-of-1s from 98.99 Upper Deck in 2018. And then he says 2 at home, 21 to go. So he, even at that time, was well aware that there are 23. He gathered up 2 of them and was proclaiming that he would like to get the other 20 the other 21 so that he could get all 23. I think anytime a collector sort of gets their hands on one of these, they're just, the impulse is to complete that set. I've certainly can relate to that. I have approached him and I have offered way over market for his 2 copies, and he didn't even, he was so far from interested. And so he's had those for 7 years. So one would think that that the value increase that he's enjoyed would, plus the opportunity to own it for 7 years, maybe there'd be a sliver of opportunity to sell, but not even close. He just completely shut me down. All right, next up we have P, which is owned by Oz Celtics, a gentleman that I was fortunate enough to meet at 2025 National, and I had expressed to him a great interest in owning this card. And here's his post from February of 2024. He simply writes, 1998 Upper Deck Michael Jordan Gold 1 of 1. So again, opting for the simplicity. And in fairness to that approach, there really sort of isn't much more that needs to be said except for Michael Jordan Gold 1 of 1. But he has that one. It lives in Australia. Mount Playa mailman. His, I believe, live in Germany. It's actually so fascinating to me that Europe and Asia really pounced on Michael Jordan's 1 of 1s, and collectors here in America just overlooked them entirely. Well, not entirely. There are some American collectors, but the majority of these, and the ones that I've procured, the majority of them have come from overseas, whether it was from Asia or parts of Europe. And really, it's Europe, I think, that's the dominance. The collectors in Germany and Austria, and I'm trying to think of all the other places, and Switzerland, and this is the places where, especially these Upper Deck 1 of 1s, went for a while. And so then now we come to Q, owned by me. R, also owned by me. S, owned by me. T, owned by me. So Q, R, and S have not received any social content yet. T did. So if you click T, that will take you to an Instagram post of mine where I wax poetic and photo match and everything. Then if you go to U, that is my 10th of the 10 that I have is U, and there is no content around that. So that's just going to take you to my card ladder profile. And then finally we get to W, the first appearance here of the 90s MJ 1 of 1 owners of MK Sports cards. I've actually read his caption on the show before, but I enjoy it so much it's worth reading again. So here was his caption, and this is from December of 2024. Michael Jordan, 1998, Upper Deck 230W, Gold 1 of 1, BGS 8. Since 1 of 1s are all the rage these days, it's a good time to recap the landscape of MJ 1 of 1s. This is one of only 41 total base set parallel 1 of 1s that MJ had issued in 1997, of which there are 6, and 1998, 35. And why is that significant? Well, 1997 and 1998 cards are considered by many to be the final playing day issues for MJ in the 90s, while still an active member of the Bulls. He officially retired on January 13th, 1999. That is an extremely small number, especially when you consider that many 90s cards have either been lost or are still sitting in sealed boxes and packs, so it's probably a good amount less than the 41 that are actually out there in collections today. I'll never own any of the 6 97 base parallel 1 of 1s, so this one from 98 is my consolation prize, and it's the perfect one at that, since I'm a lover of gold parallels, especially from long-standing flagship products like this, and these are the only base set gold parallel 1 of 1s that MJ had issued through 1998. In my opinion, all 41 are still incredibly undervalued versus the other much less rare 90s MJ inserts and parallels that are selling what they are selling for today. And it is because 90s collectors / investors have been slow to recognize the importance and scarcity of 1 of 1 issues like this. To put it in perspective, LeBron, Steph, and Tom Brady, for example, each have literally thousands of plain day issued base set parallel 1 of 1s. There is certainly a gap in education here, and so it is one that I'm trying to help fill. Anyway, this was my favorite MJ pickup of 2024. Please DM me if you have or ever come across any other 90s MJ 1 of 1s for sale or for trade. So I think that post probably was formative on me, since I didn't really wake up to 90s MJ 1 of 1s as a collector until June of 2025. Although I had started researching them, I guess in 2023 or 2024, whenever I started putting that spreadsheet together. It was one of those years. I think it was 23. So I had started researching it, but I certainly hadn't acted on it. I just was sort of passively gathering information, and he had the courage of his conviction to make a leap and to pick up this 230W. And the W is cool among the alphabet golds because it's the final one. So the bookend, if you will. So great caption. I think that caption inspired me, probably has inspired others. It was just so well written, and in any way. All right, moving on here. The holding court gold. So now we're going to get to another long-winded caption, even more long-winded. Somebody, maybe one of the few that can rival my own long-windedness. The holding court gold, one of one of Michael Jordan, which is owned by Spinatron. So the holding court gold is really interesting because it's the concept of the card is dual-sided. Michael Jordan is on one side and a different player is on the other, and there's 30 total. But one of them is Michael Jordan on one side and Michael Jordan on the other side. And then the other 29 are like Michael Jordan and insert player. So like there's one of Jordan and Kobe, for example, and one of Jordan and other 29 other like relevant, interesting players. But this is the only one. This is the only gold one of one that has Jordan on one side and Jordan on the other. The only solo Michael Jordan card. And so the owner is Spinatron, and I found he actually posted this card again 3 weeks ago, and so he had a great caption too. And so let's read it. So he writes, a New Year resolution is more curation, less crastination. But this post is for 1/2 or January 2nd, a hobby look at 1/2. A card has two sides, but nowadays attention and design shifted to the front half. The opposite example is this Jordan holding court featuring a worthy player versus MJ on the back. Or sorry, a worthy front side player versus MJ being on the back side, including the last card in the set, which is MJ on the front and the back. The concept of this card is not front side only. You may say that one of one has no other half. Well, slides 3 and 4 is the 23 out of 23 jersey serial / very last of the set, which is close. These cards are first of Michael Jordan releases that are in 20 plus variations. Upper Deck did plenty of this, but actually the only MJ is the true MJ, so also there is no variation. Also, this is the first Michael Jordan Upper Deck one of one from a set. Being released in 1998, this is also the last Michael Jordan jersey numbered card, the last MJ one of one in his Bulls playing days. This attribute should add, not exclude. Many one of ones are hard to price or to put into context, but always references best of one tier down, similar variations, future lesser version, or even highest comparable in art. Valuation has two sides as well, the comp and the ceiling. The short-term perception, if zoomed out, plays less of a role in an evolving chart. Perception initially and at pivotal moments matters more. Today's ceiling could be tomorrow's floor comp because things cannot be reproduced. The first ever configuration, important role a player played in globalization and status of sports, influences and companionship on fans, and also true rarity produced by design or magic. Supply of cards that matter does not increase much over time, while hobby user base and purchasing power keep on growing. Long-term outlook bullish. Also, two aspects of good sales or selling early. A stunning genius sale that is a multiple fold of cost basis could be left in the dust when the true potential comes to fruition. If one sells a special card, unless for repositioning or for real use, it's a form of a short position, and it should not age well by the above. Even if one repositions, there's no guarantee you're not switching from winning into a lesser position. The other half of a collector owning a card is a card scene succession of ownership. Only collectors who have passion, insights, and conviction, all conducive to identifying and holding assets long-term, will be served well in return. So that's very dense. There's a lot there. Not particularly set on analyzing or breaking that down. Please feel free on your own time to go check that out, read it further, analyze it further, follow up with Spinatron for any clarifications or points. But I wanted to give it a reading because I did think you could just feel the passion oozing out and how much he cherishes and loves that card. All right, next up we have the Quantum Gold 3, which has a public owner. This is the first appearance on this list of Stasic 1313 or Stanley. And so here is the post, and this is the most concise post of any. It is from December of 2020, and it is simply Stan, and he posted the card in its raw form in what appears to be a card saver, a penny sleeve inside a card saver. And his entire post is hashtag Michael Jordan, one of one. So Stanley, not one to mince words. And then eventually that got into a PSA cert, which I was able to track down. And there is the card in the PSA grade. And impressively got a PSA 9, which is a great grade. Then we get to the Quantum Gold 4, which is mine. Haven't posted that publicly yet, so that'll just take you to my card ladder showcase. Quantum Gold 7, also owned by Stanley. And so we're going to find, I think, that Stanley has 7 of the Quantum Golds, I think. So once again, linking to Stanley's public claim of ownership with, again, the very similar Michael Jordan 1 of 1. This one also graded a PSA 9. Then we get to the Quantum Gold 8. This one also lives in the collection of MK sports cards. This is the second of 2 appearances that MK makes. And so let's see what he wrote here. Once again, he gave us a nice blurb that's worth reading. So this post is from August of 2025, 21 weeks ago. And he writes, Michael Jordan, 1998, Upper Deck, MJ23, number M8, Quantum Gold 1 of 1, BGS 9. How many 90s/Bulls playing day issued solo insert 1 of 1s does Michael Jordan have? Well, the real answer is 1, the 1997 Upper Deck Power Deck 1 of 1 that my friend Chris HOJ recently acquired via trade. However, if we extend MJ's playing days to include 1998, as is sometimes done, then there are an additional 31. The 30 cards from the insert parallel set out of Upper Deck's flagship product, plus 1 more, the Upper Deck Hard Court Holding Court Gold 1 of 1 that features MJ on both sides. That yields a total of only 32 plain day issued insert 1 of 1s, and this is one of them. I have always loved the die-cut gold 1 of 1s out of this MJ23 insert parallel set, but was patiently waiting for the right copy. I love that this one features a full-body action shot, and it happens to be the action shot that inspired the logo for the entire set. The gold foil on the 1 of 1 that is located just below the 1 of 1 stamp. Oh, sorry, the gold foil that is on the 1 of 1s and located just below the 1 of 1 stamp. And so there you can sort of see it if you look at the image. So this is sort of an anchor card of the insert set, at least in my biased eyes. Anyway, all MJ 1 of 1s are special, and those from the 90s, with 1997 being greater than 1998 and 1998 being superior to 1999, are the most special. So anytime I can add one, it's a great day for the PC. This is my third, and it gives me one from each of my 3 favorite 1998/1999 1 of 1 sets. I'll share more about that along with a group shot of them tomorrow. And then thank you for Fund Your Cards for the assist. And so the third that he's referring to is from 99-2000 Ultimate Victory. He has one of the Ultimate Victory MJ 1 of 1s, which I think in some people's eyes, those are the most beautiful Michael Jordan 1 of 1s ever made. And they're from that third year of MJ 1 of 1s, 99-2000, which, like I alluded to in the beginning of this episode, we'll likely cover at some point. And so, okay, so moving on here, then we get to the Quantum Gold 14, which belongs to Kiwi Cards, which is his first and only appearance that he'll make in this database. And so here's what he had to say about Quantum Gold 14. Say hello, the 1998 Upper Deck MJ23 Quantum Gold 1 of 1, number 14. One of MJ's only 72 90s Bulls era 1 of 1s. Grateful for the deal. Thank you, Roman. I moved most of my 90s Jordan inserts to make it happen, and no regrets. This one is special. The card. Only 4 of the 72 1 of 1s feature MJ in the Black Bulls jersey, and 3 of those came from the die-cut Quantum Gold insert run. 14 is the only one with a clean, soaring dunk. The black Chicago jersey with red trim, the gold die-cut frame, and the red on black foil gives it a perfect color match. It shouts MJ insert of the 90s. The moment. The image comes from November 23rd, 1997, a Clippers double overtime game featured in episode 2 of The Last Dance. The Bulls start off 0-4 on the road with no Pippen and the team wobbling. Jordan responds with 49 points and an iconic dunk to put Chicago up 82-81 with 3 minutes left in the fourth, willing them to their first road win. This is peak MJ, obsessed with winning, standards never slipping. And a fun fact, Upper Deck edited his tongue out of the photo at MJ's request. And then he gives a shout out to the 90s MJ 1 of 1s. And he says, happy to have even a small seat at the table with some of the titans of the hobby holding significant pieces from the 72. And he gives a shout out to several of the collectors that have been mentioned, actually 6 of them that have been mentioned in this database. Nat, Spinatron, Oz Celtics, MJ23 Collect, Stanley, and myself. So there it is. And nice research done. He photo matched it, and pretty cool that it has the tie to The Last Dance. And then something that he pointed out, sort of the card, the one of the things that making it unique is the jersey it is pictured in, which is the black, and then the photo. And that was very impactful on how I picked as I was working the trade of Stanley. and he was willing to make available 2 of his quantum golds to, as we were setting the value for that trade. And that's how I selected which 2 quantum golds I wanted. Was I just looked at the ones that I thought had the photo that I liked the most. And so one of the ones, so here, Quantum Gold 4 is one I have, and I just think it's just an incredible, from behind the glass action shot of MJ at the rim attacking. Kind of reminiscent of Topps Chrome photography from the 2000s. They had some really cool shots like that. And then Kiwi Cards points out all the reasons why he likes that photo, the black jersey, which the black jersey is really rare. I actually like how MJ looks in the red jersey the most. The red against the gold is really appealing. But the 2 I have are white jersey. The other one we're going to get to in a second. But I just chose it because of the action pose, and that's a really fun way to navigate the quantum golds. Which at having 30, there 30 of the 72 MJ 1-of-1s are quantum golds, and so. They all have a same design, although they have different photos and different captions and different card numbers. So they're all unique 1-of-1s, but sort of that is one way to distinguish them, is just look at them and find the one that has the photo that might speak the most to you. That's one way to do it. So then we get to Quantum Gold 16, which is owned by MJ23 Collect, who got a shout out there from Kiwi Cards. I believe this is the second of 2 appearances for him. And here's what he had to say. This is from March of 2024. 1998-99 Upper Deck, MJ23 Gold M16, Michael Jordan 1-of-1. Another card from this set sold last night at Golden, a bit higher than I expected for a PSA 8. And then he posts a picture of his. So it's unclear how long he has had his for. I'm pretty sure he's had those for... He's had his for many years. Coming up next, we have another from Stanley, the Quantum Gold 17. So if we click in here, this is actually going to take me to Stanley's reels, because the only documentation that exists of Stanley having this card is in a video that he made, one of the most epic videos of MJ 1-of-1s you'll ever see. I encourage you to go look at that. Quantum Gold 19, also owned by Stanley. This one did get its own standalone post, once again, with simply hashtag Michael Jordan 1-of-1 from December of 2020. Quantum Gold 20 here, and this is the second of my 2, and I have posted this to Instagram, so this does get a big caption and a rundown and everything, and photos from different angles and information about the set and everything. And so there if you want to learn more about it, I've actually already covered that one in an episode, so we don't need to go further on it in this episode. Then you get to Quantum Gold 26, also with Stanley. And once again, that's going to take you to the reel of his where he shows off ownership of that one. Quantum Gold 27, also with Stanley. Here he added a little bit more. This is from April 2024. Hashtag Michael Jordan 1998. Hashtag Upper Deck. Hashtag Gold. Hashtag Masterpiece. Hashtag 1-of-1. Hashtag 1-of-a-kind. Hashtag BGS Grading 9. And this is a BGS 9. So he has these in great condition, in mint condition. And then finally, Quantum Gold 28, also with Stanley. And what did he have to say about this one? This one was from December 2020, also BGS 9, and the caption is just, once again, hashtag Michael Jordan 1-of-1. Okay, so that's all the public owners. That's all 37 that have a public owner. We have just gone through them. And now here are the privates, the 21 of the 72 that have private owners. So we have the Platinum 1-of-1, which is coming for sale with Heritage next month. We have the Gem Masters 1-of-1, which is privately owned, but has been shown publicly several times, and does have a PSA cert page that allows you to look at it. Just, I don't know. There's nothing that needs to be said about that. Just simply a stunning card. Checklist 175, which is the second of the checklists from Series 1. It has a private owner, but it does indeed have a PSA cert page, and I believe it has shown up in a sales history. From the Alphabet Golds, E, also a private owner with a PSA cert page. G, private owner with a BGS cert page. I, same scenario. J, same scenario. K, same scenario. L, also private owner, but this time it's with a PSA slab. O is a private owner with a BGS cert. V is a private owner, same scenario. And then we get to the Quantum Gold. So the Quantum Golds with private owners are Quantum Gold 2, Quantum Gold 5, Quantum Gold 9, 10, 11, 18, 22, 23, 29, and 30. And then the final portion of this document is something that we've already covered, which are the 14 unsurfaced. And so when I did post the unsurfaced 14 to Instagram, people, the one that got the most comments, where people sort of like responded and said, oh, I really like that one, was this one. the 1998-99 SPX Finite Extreme 1 of 1. And I think that is interesting. And I think that one's fantastic. It's such is it like Jordan's like sort of like flying backwards while also somehow sort of soaring to score. So that one, but they all, I think, got row 3. I had somebody sort of mention that that one really stuck out to them. And anyway, lots of there was a lot of fun posting that, going over that, and then getting to do some content on it about on this show. All right, let me take a drink and pause for a second, and then we're going to move on to the second segment of this episode. All right, let's get on to this next segment here, which what was I calling this segment? The triangulating a value. So the idea here is to triangulate a value going back to the 2 MJs that are showing up on Heritage. The idea is to figure out a value estimate for each of these. And so here's the guide price that Heritage issued for the Platinum Masterpiece from 97 Ultra. The guide value is $2 million and up. And for the 98 Ultra Masterpiece, the purple 1 of 1, the guide value is $1 million and up. And sort of the odds at some of the big picture framing here, like why would one be twice as much as the other? Part of that is the first year of 1 of 1s versus the second year for MJ. These are my theories. So, but this is the causal explanation that I would give. Another factor is that the purple has 2 copies, and that's clear in its population report with PSA that there are 2, and that is noted in the description. I think that is largely publicly known. So in some sense, it's a 1 of 2 rather than a 1 of 1. Although the description does sort of make the case that this is the better one because it's got a higher numerical grade. That's not the approach I would take, but I think provenance is the overwhelming factor here. But it's an angle. And then and then also I think the 97 Ultra is being further magnified by the fact that it's chronologically the first Michael Jordan 1 of 1 ever issued. So 97 Ultra preceded 97 Flare and 97 Upper Deck on the release calendar. So there's a pretty solid case to be made that it's the first 1 of 1 ever of Michael Jordan. But then it also suffers from the fact that its design is indistinguishable from the Platinum Medallion. So maybe that sort of keeps it in check. That's why the guide value is $2 million and not $10 million or whatever. I don't know. That certainly wouldn't explain that large of a discrepancy. But sort of the idea there is that there are reasons for the 97 to be given a guide value of higher than the 98, but also that there is something of a ceiling on the 97, especially when running in conjunction with the 98. Given that aesthetically, I think the 98 is preferred. And that the 98 it is a beautiful purple, and it has a great shine to the nameplate, and it's also distinguished from the Platinum. So moving on to the valuation angle here. So this is something I foreshadowed in the opening segment of the show, and the idea that we're going to execute here is triangulating a value by using. So sometimes people will ask, or I see people discuss, how do you value a 1 of 1 especially one that has no comps? And so this is going to lay out a blueprint to do it. So the blueprint relies on knowledge of 2 factors. One, knowledge of the sale of other players from the same set. So we're actually going to look at public sales that have happened fairly recently of the Allen Iverson at 97 Ultra 1 of 1 Masterpiece and the John Stockton. So we have 2 players, 2 Hall of Fame players that we're going to look at. Clearly, neither is on Michael Jordan's level from a collectability standpoint or from a legacy standpoint. Neither is even close, but they are Hall of Fame players, and they did log these sales fairly recently. I believe the Stockton was late 2024, and I believe the Iverson was fall of 2025, but we'll confirm that in a second. So I have these 2 Masterpiece sales from Hall of Fame caliber players, and there were a few more from Commons too, but we're really starting to stretch the logic if we're sort of looking at Commons. So I wanted to keep it to Hall of Fame players. players with a fairly high level of collectability. And then yeah, we have the Jordan. And so that's one aspect of the comparison, is finding other players from the same set, but that doesn't give us enough. We also need a second multiplier that tells us how much more Jordan might be than those players. And so one way to do it, which is not the way that I use, is you could look at the multiplier from Jordan to these players from other sets, but that gets a little bit fraught. So instead, the way to do it was, because of the way that this set is constructed, you have the base set card, you have the gold medallion parallel to it, which is unnumbered, you have the platinum medallion parallel to it, which is numbered to 100, and then you have the platinum masterpiece, which has an identical design to the platinum medallion, but on the reverse, it's numbered 1 of 1. So the platinum medallion provides a really instructive basis here, because we can look, and so the methodology here is to take the Iverson, for example, the masterpiece, the platinum masterpiece 1 of 1, which sold for $123,000 in September of 2025, and then look at what his platinum medallion sells for around that time span. And so what I did for consistency was I pulled what the PSA 8 sells for in the platinum medallion for Iverson, and then I also did that for Stockton, and then ultimately I also did that for Jordan to build this multiplier out. So the idea here is that the most recent sale of an Iverson PSA 8 platinum medallion was in May of 25, so fairly close to September 25, just a few months apart, and that sale was for $3,200. So that allows us to create a multiplier. What is the multiplier from Iverson's masterpiece 1 of 1, which isn't a grade of BGS 7.5? Let that be noted. So it's, and certainly the grade does impact the masterpiece value, but there's really not a ton of controlling that can be done for that. But that along with many other reasons makes this a very imprecise and rough estimate. And that's always good to keep in mind. I mean, this is like maybe a step better than a guesstimate, but not much more. So anyway, we have the Iverson masterpiece to the most recent sale of the PSA 8 platinum medallion out of 100, and that gives us a multiplier of 38x. So for Iverson, the multiplier from the PSA 8 to the masterpiece, the PSA 8 platinum medallion to the platinum masterpiece, is 38 times. Same analysis for Stockton. His masterpiece sold in December of 24 for $30,000, and his platinum medallion PSA 8 sold for $950 in November of 23. So there's a little more than a year gap in between those. So once again, adding to the impreciseness of this calculation, but a 32 times multiplier there for Stockton. So Iverson generated a 38 times multiplier. Stockton, whose masterpiece I should note was in a BGS 8, there's a 32x multiplier from his BGS 8 masterpiece to his PSA 8 platinum medallion. So that gave us the two multipliers from Hall of Fame caliber players who had this card sell within the somewhat recent past, and then that opens us up finally to do the analysis now to Michael Jordan. So we have the two multipliers, right? So we can take the 32x multiplier, which is the Stockton, and we can take the 38x multiplier, which is the Iverson, and then we can apply it to Michael Jordan's most recent platinum medallion PSA 8 sale, and then that's going to use the multiplier from the platinum to the masterpiece for those other two Hall of Fame players, and let's apply it to Jordan. Let's see where it gets us. So taking the Iverson multiplier, which is 38x, and multiplying it by Michael Jordan's most recent PSA 8 platinum medallion sale, which was $54,000, that gets us to a little bit under $2.1 million. So the Iverson multiplier puts the Jordan at a little bit under $2.1 million. The Stockton multiplier puts the Jordan masterpiece at $1.75 million. So the range generated by the 32x and the 38x multiplier from the platinum medallion to the masterpiece is somewhere between 32 and 38x. And bearing in mind that the Jordan masterpiece is in a PSA 8 holder, so maybe there's even a little bit more of a premium for a PSA 8 versus a BGS 7.5 or a BGS 8. And so the average of those two multipliers is 1.9 million. So the guide value of 2 million is pretty well lined up with the platinum medallion to masterpiece multiplier for Hall of Fame caliber players. So there's that 1.9 million. So I think the 2 million guide value is roughly supported by this. Granted that 2 million and up is the guide value, and maybe the multiplier compounds for MJ, gets stronger. So, but maybe also there's a bit of an incentive for the auction house to err on the side of err on the liberal side of estimating. And then we're going to do the same analysis for the 1998-99 Purple Masterpiece. This time I was able to find 3 players who had a recent sale: Shaq, Dennis Rodman, and Tracy McGrady, that we'll use for this analysis. And so I won't walk through all the numbers quite in painstaking detail again, except to point out that the Shaq multiplier. And so here we're once again using the Platinum Medallion as the basis, noting that here the Platinum Medallion has a different color scheme than the Purple Masterpiece. The Platinum is in that chrome, silver, platinum-ish color, and then the Masterpiece is in the purple. So for Shaq, the multiplier comes out to be 63 times. For Dennis Rodman, it's only 20 times. And I think part of the reason for that is because the Dennis Rodman Purple Masterpiece sold twice in quick succession. And so I'm taking the most recent sale. But the multiplier for Rodman was 20x, and the multiplier for McGrady was 98x. So McGrady enjoys a huge premium for his masterpiece relative to his platinum. So we have a really wide range there, right? You have 3 different multipliers here from the platinum to the purple for 98. And they are 63, 20, and 98. So after I applied each of the multipliers to Jordan's most recent Platinum Medallion sale, so Jordan's most recent Platinum Medallion sale of the 98 is $23,400. Okay, so comparing that to the 97, I believe the 97 PSA 8 most recent sale for Jordan was $54,000. So $54,000 versus $23,000. So there's like a 2.5x in that scenario. Jordan's 97 Platinum has a 2.5x multiplier over his 98 in the grade of PSA 8. But that is not the multiplier that's going to end up impacting how the masterpiece is valued. Because after we take the average of the Shaq, the Rodman, and the McGrady multiplier, which produces a huge range, because the multiplier for Rodman on the low end is 20x. So you take 20x times Jordan's most recent sale of the PSA 8 Platinum, and that gives you $468,000. That's like sort of the lower bound. And then the McGrady, the 98x, gives you a little bit shy of 2.3 million when you 98x 23,000. So the range is huge, right? This is, basically 468,000 to 2.3 million. And then the Shaq, the 63x Shaq multiplier, gives you just shy of 1.5 million. And so the average of those 3 numbers is 1.4 million. So sort of a real quick high-level overview. For the purple, the multiplier method used here gets an average price of 1.4 million per projection for the Jordan. And for the platinum, 1.9. So 1.9 million and 1.4 million here for the 2 of them. And then, of course, it definitely needs to be taken in mind. So to relate that back to the guide value here is only $1 million. So they skewed conservative here, but I think the existence of the 2 copies looms large. And but anyway, so that leads into the second part of this analysis, and it relates to my decision as to whether or not I will try to pursue either of those cards, but particularly the 97, because I'm so passionate about and persuaded by the desirability of Michael Jordan's rarest cards, which are his 1-of-1s from the first issues of 1-of-1s, which, in other words, which is these 72, of which I have 18, which we reviewed there on that on that previous section where we went through the public owners. I have 18 of the 72 now. And so I look at this, and I'm obviously extremely moved by the ultra platinum 1-of-1 being chronologically first, but even setting that aside, being one from the first year, one of the 7 first year MJ 1-of-1s, that is enough by itself to make the card incredibly appealing. But add on the chronological first, add on that it's a first appearing base set. I genuinely do enjoy the design, notwithstanding that it's identical to the platinum. I always like the platinum design. So there's just a ton to like about that card, and that card really, in some ways, is the apex card of my pursuit. So but the value is just astonishing, right? Like, that's just a mind-boggling number. But I'm going to show how it's even more mind-boggling than it might seem. So I have here to round out the discussion of the valuation talk. what I've called this alternatives. And so, and I want to use the quantum gold one of ones to sort of contextualize just what those value estimates mean and how that factors into my decision making. So I've highlighted here two quantum gold one of ones, which are the two to sell during 2025. So two of the quantum gold sold during 2025, and they are quantum gold 23, which has a private owner, and quantum gold 8, which belongs to MK Sports Cards. And so both of these sales results are in Card Ladder sales history. And number 23 sold for 14.6K, and 8 sold for 14K. So roughly each of these sold for $14,000. So that was a valuation of those at the midway mark. Oh, and interestingly, they sold within 1 day of each other. 8 sold on July 16th, 2025, and 23 sold on July 17th, 2025. And so sort of the point is, and I do believe that there's probably been, just as a consequence of general market appreciation for Michael Jordan cards and for the trading card space as a whole, that let's just assume for the sake of argument that quantum golds are now trading at about 20,000 each, maybe more, maybe less, depending upon the copy, depending upon the market conditions. And these are certainly not hyped or in any sort of central focus or on the main stage of the hobby in any way. These are obscurities. But let's just assume that maybe today, if one came to auction, it would sell for 20,000. And again, you might think that's high. You might think it would still live in the $14,000-$15,000 range, or you might think it's low. You might think it might go for more now. There's more people interested in these, or they're gaining momentum or something, or just there's a shift towards appreciating one of ones, like very similar to the one that I've experienced, and sort of taking the one of one logic and applying it to Michael Jordan collecting. But whichever way you feel, I think 20,000 is just a fine middle ground. But feel free to nitpick it. That's not really the point. Whether it's plus or minus a few grand, 20,000 will serve the purposes here. If these each are worth about $20,000, then all 30 could be had, supposing they were available, and they're not. But all 30 could be had for $600,000. All 30. That gets you almost to half of Michael Jordan's 72 first one of ones. Now, there's a lot of distinction to be made. Quantum golds are inserts. They belong to Series 2 of Upper Deck, so they are post-January retirement of 1999. And there are 30. So they, in that sense, they are the most accessible. They are the most in circulation. And in a sense, there's this perception that they're versions of each other, although they're not, but there is a perception of that. And they're confusing. And unless you've done the research or you have access to something like this list of 72 Michael Jordan one of ones, there's a lot of ignorance about these, period. They're not well known. They're not in the hobby spotlight. They're rare and they're obscure. But I do know about them. I have done the research. I do understand where they sit within Michael Jordan's hierarchy. I do understand that they belong to his first 72 one of ones. And I do understand that they belong to 98-99 Upper Deck Series 2, which I think, is probably one of the great boxes of sports cards ever made. So to me, I just think these are tremendous cards. And the idea that I could have all 30 for $600,000 and compare that to the purple masterpiece, which also comes from the second year, from 98-99, noting, however, that it is a base set parallel, whereas these are inserts, noting, and to many that is a meaningful distinction, and noting also that that the purple is the only Jordan one of one belonging to 98-99 Ultra. So hearkening back to this idea from the prior HOJ-Cast, where you sort of have this risk of dilution, like that the purple masterpiece is the clear cut, the one of one Michael Jordan from Ultra, whereas the quantum golds, if you take it from the point of view of Series 2 98-99 Upper Deck, you have the 30 quantum golds, you have the 23 alphabet golds, you have 2 checklists, and you have Highway 99. So I think that gets you to like around 55 or 56. I guess 56. Yeah. So you look at that and you say, well, Upper Deck Series 2 has 56 of the 72. And that has a very strong dilution effect. It can seem complicated, and there's how do we figure out which is the best one or whatever, And those are all totally valid points, but I can come from the point of view of depth of research, of a total understanding comprehensively of all of Michael Jordan's one-of-ones that are NBA licensed through 2009-10, and especially having thought at great length about all of Michael Jordan's one-of-ones from the 90s, from the first 2 seasons, from the first year ever, which is 97-98, and from the second year ever, which is 98-99. And having thought about it from all these angles, and to me, the fact that I could have all 30 of the quantum golds and I wouldn't even be halfway to the value estimate that we've generated for the purple one-of-one, and I'm not even a third of the way to the value estimate generated for the 97 platinum one-of-one. And the value angle here is what is strongly discouraging to me. And it doesn't need to be the case that the platinum is overvalued. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that as long as quantum golds are available at 20,000, I believe that the bang for the buck for my collecting purposes, for sort of the museum of Michael Jordan one-of-ones that I aim to curate, and the way that I understand and personally process each of these 72 one-of-ones as being very important and belonging to the same class of objects. And even though I certainly do make a distinction that the 97, 98 are chronologically prior, and for that reason, I have a strong argument to be rarer, that they have the chronological rarity. We've gone through in previous episodes the different ways of contextualizing rarity: chronological rarity, lineage rarity, the risk of dilution. So even certainly within the 72, there are levels. And I've sort of also done a rarity ranking where I ranked all of MJ's 90s serial numbered, non-autographed, non-memorabilia cards, the non-one-of-ones and the one-of-ones. And for that purpose, I made the sort of the generous, I sort of seeded the fact that let's treat these quantum golds as 1 of 30, even though I don't think that's the right way to treat them. But sort of the market could be confused or sort of blur the 30 together. And so, even when we treat them that way, they score so highly on the rarity front. Even mixing them in and looking at them in comparison to all of Michael Jordan's other 90s cards, that just the bang for the buck here is so much stronger with the quantum golds. And so that's why it just makes it so difficult to take the dramatic action that would needed to be taken to pursue the 97 platinum one-of-one or the 98 purple one-of-one, in light of how much further the dollar can go for other members of the 72, and reiterating again that especially when it comes to the purple, we're talking about cards from 98-99, and we're talking about cards that are post January of 1999 retirement. So but let me round out this discussion. So to help sort of make the point about how far the dollar goes, and to contextualize it with how far a dollar would go towards a $1.9 million value estimation card, or a $1.4 million value estimation card, which is the first and the second Ultra Masterpiece base set one-of-ones. And so another point that I just that I don't think I made, but on that dilution front, 97-98 Ultra does have 2 different one-of-ones in its base set. It has the Platinum Masterpiece one-of-one, then it has the 98 Greats Masterpiece one-of-one. So there are 2. Now, one is the first appearing, one is your traditional base set card. The other is a subset, the 98 Greats. But nonetheless, Flair has 4 within its boxes. Ultra has 2 within its boxes. Then you have Upper Deck, which has just 1 Jordan one-of-one from that first year. So let's to try and compare apples to apples here, and to sort of put into further perspective the purchasing power dimension of this, and how it factors into sort of my decision as a collector about what to pursue. I went to Card Ladder sales history. I looked at only from January 1st of 2025 to today, so roughly the last 13 months. And I searched for Michael Jordan cards from 1998 that are not autographed, that do not have a patch or a jersey piece, and that are not one-of-ones. And I said, show me all that sold for more than $20,000. And so certainly there are many, many more than this that are worth more than $20,000. But I got 77 results from over the last 13 months of non-one-of-one, non-autographed, non-memorabilia Michael Jordan cards from 98-99, which is his first which is the season associated with his first season in retirement. And so let's see what those results were. So the most recent sale was a PSA 10 Intimidation Nation, which sold for $66,000. We have a PSA 9 Platinum Medallion from 98 Ultra. Granted, all these are from 1998, so I'm going to try to stop saying the season. Platinum Medallion out of 99, PSA 9, $30,000. That's numbered to 99. The Intimidation Nation was unnumbered. Duncan Go Nuts, PSA 10, which is an unnumbered insert, $24,000. And here, when we start getting to stuff that's numbered, we can get a little bit closer to, contextualizing things. So here you have the Molten Metal Fusion, which is numbered to $250, and a BGS 9 sold for $36,000. And then you have the Molten Metal Fusion Titanium, which is numbered to $40. It sold for $430,000. So here you have a card that has 40 identical copies for $430,000. And you compare that to the Quantum Gold. And even if you want to say that these are one of 30s rather than one of ones, these have last sold for $14,000. What is that as a percentage of what is 14,000? Or let's round up to 20,000, just to be fair, because this sold in December of 2025. So let's use a more updated number. 20,000 divided into 433,000. It's less than 5% for a card that is rarer no matter what way you slice it. And especially rare if you sort of acknowledge its one of one-ness. So you start thinking about the purchasing power. You look at the 98 Star Quest Gold from Collector's Choice. A PSA 9 sold for $140,000. There are 100 of those. Or, here we have the 98 Hardcourt Jordan on both sides. We've looked at the gold one, which is in the tremendous collection of Spinatron. Here is the silver numbered to 23, sold for $25,000. Or we can look here at the 98 SPX Finite Spectrum, numbered to 25, sold for $62,000. Although I think that's I wouldn't put too much stock into that sale because I'm noticing that the image itself is quite blurry. So let's move on from that one. I don't want to put too much stock into that. We have the 98, of course, these are all 98. The Fleer Classic 61, which is a Jordan numbered to 61, BGS 9, $24,000. So I just have a hard time looking at everything that costs more than a Quantum Gold one of one from the controlling for the fact of season. These are all from 98, 99. And I just have a hard time seeing how 20,000 from what I value as a collector. I'm not giving advice to others here. I'm certainly, and I'm certainly don't think anybody's taking it in that light. I think this is autobiographical. This is just me explaining how I think about things. And I'm certainly not trying to be critical of people who have a different value system than I do, because it's quite clear that I'm in the minority and that other people are valuing things far differently than I am based on prices realized. So I'm not trying to position this as anything other than this is where I'm coming from on this. And so we look at for example, the Playmakers Theater. Here's a BGS 9.5, which is obviously a terrific grade and condition. 132,000. There's 100 of those. And or here's the 98, 99 PMG out of 50, a BGS 8, 225,000. There's 50 of those. Not taking anything away from these cards. I've owned some of these in the past. I understand the appeal. I think they're just outstanding cards. I think these are absolutely terrific cards. And so, and maybe some of it cuts the other way. Like, okay, so here we have an SPX Finite sale of Jordan card number 201. And Jordan appears, I think, 4 times in the base set. And the SPX, this is the same base set that has the SPX Extreme one of one, which that one of one parallel only existed for the first card for the first so many cards in the checklist. So there isn't a one of one parallel to this particular card number 201. The Extreme parallel is only to card 1. But here we have this card is numbered to 25 and it sold for $35,000 in September of 2025. So there you might say you could reasonably take the point of view, well, look, I think the Quantum Golds are really 1 out of 30. This is 1 out of 25. Therefore, it's rarer. And 35,000. So maybe you think the dollar goes farther on a card like that, and sort of you could try to make that argument from within my framework. But I would push back and say, well, I actually see the quantum golds as their own one of ones, and I see them as belonging to this broader group of 72 one of ones from the 90s. And this card just doesn't even, it's not even knocking at the door. There's 24 copies too many here for that card to even enter the discussion. But anyway, all right, so that's enough about value talk. But sort of that's sort of going through my rationale, my thinking for deciding whether or not to ultimately pursue the platinum one of one or the purple one of one, and the fact that that how far the dollar can go in different contexts is definitely a major part of my decision. And so that's going to bring me here to the final portion of the show, the third portion of the show, which I'm calling the Rorschach test. And so I want to keep, this is a philosophical part of the show. It has a risk of running long, but I want to keep it short because we're not that far off from hitting 2 hours, and I actually think I need to keep it under 2 hours for StreamYard to properly work. So I'll try to condense this. So the Rorschach test, or what is a Rorschach test? A Rorschach test is the idea that a psychologist can show a patient an ink blot, and the ink blot has been configured in such a way that it's ambiguous and it's unclear what it's actually showing. And then what the patient says in response to it can sometimes reveal aspects of their personality or aspects about how their mind works that might be unique. And anyway, there's a whole science of the Rorschach test, and it is controversial, but the point is just to use it as a metaphor and nothing more. So that's the basic idea of the Rorschach test, and I'm going to use that metaphor, but apply it to the sports card context. But first, something very brief and autobiographical to set the stage. And I promise I won't get too autobiographical here on a non-card subject, but it will help explain what I'm trying to get at. I've lived in California 3 different times in my life. I lived in California from 2006 to 2010 when I was pursuing a career in the music industry. And I suppose I turned 20 in 2006. So I was there for the first 4 years of my 20s. And then I lived in California again from 2017 to 2020. So 11 years, or I guess 7 years after I left, I came back. And at that time, it was to go to law school. And now I've spent, or I will have spent, a little over a month in California here in 2026, in the beginning of 2026. And so the thought that occurs to me is that at each different juncture of my life in California, I treated the landscape and the surroundings and the city and the geography totally differently. When I was first here, I was so singularly focused on trying to crack my way into the music industry, trying to build a career, establish an identity. I'm young, and I never even made the time to just go to the beach really, or to enjoy any of the beautiful natural surroundings that are here. I couldn't have cared less. I didn't really care that the weather is gorgeous year round. None of those things really mattered to me. What mattered to me was trying to build and establish a career in my particular field. Then the second time I was here in law school, it was really a lot of the same. I was more relaxed. I was excuse me. Let me take a sip here. I was a bit more relaxed. I was a bit more amenable to appreciating nature and slowing down and the like, but still it was very fast paced. And at that point, I was certainly trying to build an identity and a career for myself, but now in the field of law. Obviously from the vantage point of a student, but then quickly, your summers during law school are packed as well, whether you're doing externships or working as a clerk or something. Like you're really by the time you're in law school, you are doing your schedule is packed, whether it's from schoolwork or summer activities. And so once again, I just really don't have time or an appreciation. And it's also out of sight and out of mind. Like, how am I supposed to, dream about having the luxury to spend a weekend enjoying some scenic overlook or something when I'm trying to get my foot in the door at a law firm, when I'm trying to establish a career. But now this time things look completely different. I'm obviously now 39, turning 40 later this year. And I'm able to really slow down and really enjoy all of the architectural and natural beauty that this area of the world offers. And the point here is that I'm looking at the exact same thing. I'm looking at the same bluffs and beaches and ocean and sunsets over Catalina Island from the same perches on Newport Coast and Laguna Beach and Santa Monica and Venice. But it looks completely different because I'm looking at it through different life perspective, different eyes, different vantage points. But it's the same thing. And yet it feels and looks and smells and seems so different. And that sort of is the point of the Rorschach test, is that looking at the same thing but having different sensations and interpretations of it is revealing something about the onlooker, not the thing that is being perceived. And there is a sense of this generally in the hobby as well, that the cards we collect and the collection we put together and what we see in the card and how we view the card as an expression of ourselves is telling about ourselves at least as much as it is telling something about the card. Although I've certainly tried to, as a collector myself, as a content creator myself, I've tried to really home in on understanding the card as the card at least as much, if not more, as I understand the card as it in terms of what it means to me. I think that's an important pivot, an important inflection point sort of in the evolution of collecting. In my personal evolution, but also in a teleological sense, that sort of the logic of collecting eventually pushes us all in that direction. But that's a topic for a different day. Okay, so bringing this Rorschach metaphor to bear, it certainly reminds me quite a bit of my Michael Jordan collecting experience, where when I first got back, I was looking at scoring kings and stuff like that, and that was the stuff that was leaping out to me, and one of ones weren't even in my mind, just like the natural beauty of California wasn't even front of mind for me. It wasn't even an afterthought. It was not the point. Then you reach the intermediate phase where you sort of reach and get some grails. And that was sort of like my law school experience, where like, okay, I'm starting to find my footing here. I am sort of starting to ease into this. I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable. I can sort of enjoy and start to have the perspective to appreciate just what a magnificent slice of land this really is. And then now here we are at the third phase here, where like I can look at Michael Jordan's and I have the experience and the calmness and the vantage point to notice that these are quite remarkable, and that these actually are the synthesis of the things that I love collecting, the absolute most, which is, the peak of rarity, which is one of ones, and the chronological rarity, and that it is an accident of history that Michael Jordan, my favorite player of all time, happens to line up with the earliest instances of the one of one, which has come to be my favorite card type. Very similar to how I'm able to, with a little more maturity and vintage to myself, to enjoy the beauty of California, and to make sure that any chance I get that I take a scenic drive or take a jog along the beach or just do something to enjoy the natural beauty, the fleeting beauty that I have the opportunity to take in at this time. And now let me take this Rorschach test metaphor to 2 more levels and we'll be out of here. So I was also talking to Josh, Cardboard Chronicles, Card Ladder Josh, about this idea. And it just so happened that as I was doing the research to find all the owners to make this database or this registry of these of the owners of the 72 Michael Jordan one of ones, that I also stumbled into owners of several of LeBron's first one of ones, his first rookie year one of ones. And I don't have a definitive count, but I think he has around 15 rookie year one of ones, and then plus he has plates, maybe 40, 50, 60, something like that, plates too from 03, 04. But yeah, for LeBron's first one of ones, or at least I shouldn't even say that so definitively, but what I perceive to be his first NBA license one of ones, and probably his first one of ones period, of the roughly 15 that exist, I was able to just stumble into 5, just as a result of the Jordan research, and then I threw the 5 on the screen here. You have the SB Authentic Extra Limited one of one autograph card. You have the Upper Deck Finite Platinum one of one to card number 242, the Finite Rookie. You have the 2003 Hoops Hot Prospects White Hot one of one. You have the Exquisite Collection Rainbow one of one, and then this SB Authentic Exquisite Endorsements one of one. I think that's about 33% of LeBron's rookie year non-plate one of ones, which is just fantastic. I just look at these cards and they all are just so special. And they're so different, and when you put the 5 together, they just make such a pretty presentation. and because they're so different and they're so unique and really they're so obscure, each of these are just so far off of the hobby's main stage that the obscurity of them just makes them so much more intriguing. And sort of like a gold rush. Like I want to be the one to get there to excavate it first before everybody else eventually gets there too. But LeBron is just not my lane, and these are already placed into incredible collections with collectors who fully appreciate what they are. So that ship might as well have sailed. And now it does occur to me that I actually skipped his finest gold 1 of 1, so I need to throw that into my folder too. I wish I would have been able to place this here on this graphic. But anyway, Josh and I were discussing it, and we were looking at these LeBron 1-of-1s, and Josh made just a fantastic comment where he was just like, it's actually staggering how much we've developed as collectors, how far we've come. And he said, we were looking at these 1-of-1s, and he was like, like when I first got to the hobby, we were like buying $30 refractors. We're talking 10 years ago. He's like, we were buying $30 refractors. Like these cards, I think the phrase he uses, like, these cards were like too much dopamine to even look at. I can't even look at these. I have to put these out of sight and out of mind. They're just on such a different level. But now, now we're looking at them and sort of thinking like, well, Josh, would you ever go for one of these as a LeBron collector? What do you think? Now they're actually in play. At least on some, at least maybe they're not really in play. It totally depends on if the owner would ever be willing to part with them. But they're in play only in the sense that it's not wildly unrealistic. It's not torturous. It's fair play. It's realistic strategizing to think maybe I go after one of these. And so so once again, these first year or these rookie year LeBron exquisite 1-of-1s are a bit of a Rorschach test for a collector as well. When you look at them, must you avert your eyes because they're just so far down the rabbit hole of collecting and you're not even prepared to look that far down yet, or you're not prepared to look that far over the cliff, or whatever metaphor might be best here. Is that the case, or are you at a level of sophistication or maturity that you might actually be in a position to pursue one of these as a collector? So the Rorschach test. And then finally, to put a bow on the Rorschach test metaphor, the hobby as a whole and the offering of cards as a whole is its own Rorschach test. And sort of how the hobby once so longingly looked at the Prism base PSA 10, and it wasn't that long ago, 4 or 5, 6 years ago. The hobby once saw those as the key target, and building the tallest pile of those is the ultimate flex. And now the hobby would look at that pile or that card, and in general, it is not nearly as impressive. And we've seen those cards lose 80-90% of their value. To like take the 2018 Prism base PSA 10 Luka, for example, which reached $1,800, $2,000, or maybe even more, I don't remember, and now is $150 to $200. And so, the perception shift, what a hobby participant sees when they look at a card like that, and then how the average of all the perspectives of the hobby has shifted when looking at a card like that. Or like a different example is the 1986 Fleer number 57, Michael Jordan in a PSA 10, and how the hobby sort of idolized and put that card on a pedestal as recently as 2021, when it was logging sales in excess of 700,000, and now today it regularly sells at 200,000. And just sort of the changing taste and the evolving taste, and how the Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer 57 PSA 10 might be the ultimate Rorschach card for the average, not average in a pejorative sense, just like the truly average, the measure of centrality, the the collector who is the average of all collectors. Or just any, I don't really like what the average thing was sort of getting at, because that's not really what I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at is take any collect, walk into we just were at the Front Row Card Show in San Diego, walk in, grab one of the people from the floor of that show and say, what is your opinion? What is your perception of the 1986 Fleer number 57 Michael Jordan PSA 10? That card might be the ultimate Rorschach card. And if it is the ultimate Rorschach card, and if price is sort of estimating the average of the hobby sentiment towards it, which is a very fraught assumption, but just if we pretend that it is for a moment, then the shift of that card from being a $700,000 card to a $200,000 card over the last 4 or 5 years, well, what does that tell us about the hobby? What does that ink blob of a card reveal? And I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. So that's going to do it for the HOJ-Cast series. We try to wrap this up before 2 hours. HOJ-Cast number 31 is in the books. Thank you for checking it out. We'll see you guys next time.